Ryan Leaf, ESPN college football NFL analyst and works for Westwood One. He's busy. Second overall pick by the Chargers back in the 1998 draft. And also the CEO of Ram Consultant Incorporated, college and NFL analyst. You got a lot of things going on. And your podcast, Bust, the Ryan Leaf story. Let me start here because it feels like there's a feud that's been going on with you and the former GM of the Colts, Bill Polian, for a long, long time. Now, how did it start, and why are we still talking about the 1998 draft?
Well, it's the 25th anniversary, so it's been a quarter century. And so people were talking about it a lot, and he went on a podcast for the 33rd team. It's a bunch of former GMs and coaches and things like that talk about what's going on in the NFL, and relive the draft story from 25 years ago. And unfortunately, there's been a story that has been out there for a long, long time that when I was asked what I would do after I was drafted, my response to the Colts at the time was that when they asked, when can you be in the facility? Can you be in, you could be there a week afterwards. And my response apparently was, I can't be there. Me and my boys have a trip to Vegas for 7 to 10 days.
Is that true?
No, I've never spoken. I had never spoken to Bill Polian. I'd never spoken to Bruce Arians. I'd never spoken to Jim Mora Sr. I missed my meeting at the Combine because of an MRI. It became a big deal. And then at my pro day, I didn't speak with any of them. I just went out and balled and spent most of my time with the Chiefs and the Chargers that day with June Jones.
Did you not want to go to the Colts?
I didn't care.
But did you want to go to the Chargers?
Didn't care. Either one for me was fine. I wasn't pushing for either. Lee Steinberg, in his book, pushed a narrative that we weren't interested in going to Indianapolis.
But I thought you told us years ago that you sort of tanked your interview with the Colts.
Never had an interview.
You bailed on them.
That was Lee. I had an MRI with the Chicago Bears.
Okay.
And so I missed the meeting, assumed that we would just do it again the next morning. But Jim Moore Sr. Threw a big fit in the media, and it was a big story. And I was just like, "What? This is absurd."
Okay, but is your agent responsible for this?
Yes.
Or is Bill Polian?
No, my agent is. I found out a few things over the last week. Bill Polian and I talked this week after I got after him a little bit.
Oh, he called you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we wanted to have a conversation.
Apologies?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that my wife and I were in the car. We just dropped the kid off at school when he called, so she was with me in the drive. She loves to just type on notes things I should say, and she shows it to me as I drive.
Okay.
But yeah, I thought it was good. Adults had a conversation. I think the biggest thing is I didn't think I was worthwhile enough for the longest time to have my own back. I didn't think I had a chance in Houston at the Houston Super Bowl. McLovin and I and our wives were at Lee Steinberg's party, and I'm at the urinal, and up walks next to me is Bruce Arians. And I remember thinking in my mind at the time, I'm like, this is a perfect time to confront him.
Of course, in the urinal.
Yeah. I didn't say anything. It was like, I don't know, 3 years out of prison, and I just still felt still like a kind of a POS. And so I just didn't have the backbone to do it. I have a little more resolve right now. I like who I see in the mirror. So last week, I just said I was fed up with it. I'm tired of the revisionist history. This could never have happened. We never met. So I let it be known. And I think there was a really good response from it. And I think it made me, it made me feel better about myself and finally sticking up for myself.
Yeah, because it does feel like that everybody in the Colts war room wanted to take Peyton Manning and not you, and that's not the case.
No,
that I was told that it might have been split because you had more talent than Peyton. In my opinion, you had more ability than Peyton. You had more mobility. You didn't have the approach that he had, and that's what's made him one of the great quarterbacks of all time.
I did have the approach. I watched film like crazy. I loved practice. I did all the things. I just was unprepared for how money was going to change me. You cannot quantify. Okay. You can't quantify that variable at any point. Now, I do think that's changing with NIL. I think you're going to start to get an understanding from some of these guys when they make millions of dollars while in college.
But how did money change you?
The idea that success was money, power, and prestige. I don't know where that was taught to me. It wasn't from my father. It wasn't from where I grew up, but it was that made me more important than you. And I didn't have to listen to anybody.
So you didn't have to lower yourself to a reporter asking you a question.
Right. I was rich and famous, and I played football.
If you had gone to a different franchise, any better?
No.
Oh, you were who you were, and money was going to change you.
Money and the other variable you can't quantify, and for me, we couldn't. How was I going to deal with failure at the very highest level? What if I would have led the league in interceptions my rookie year, like Peyton did? How would I have dealt with that? Probably horribly, because I saw that as failure.
Yes.
So those were the two things. Now, if I went to Indianapolis with Marshall Faulk and Marvin Harrison, may have my character defects been, let's say,
disguised,
not seen for a little while longer. But geographic change for somebody like me, it doesn't matter. No matter where I go, there I am. And so if I'm the problem, I have to fix me before any of it can be realized in a positive way. So I don't like the revisionist history around my talent, my approach.
Okay.
I think the things that need to be talked about was the idea that everything was going to be easy, like I thought it had been in college and in high school, which it wasn't. I worked my tail off, but I just, in my mind, thought I could just go out and do what I did my whole life. And
I always say this, and this comes from a source who's a scout, who said, I always want to see the series after you threw an interception. Like, that tells me more about you than I'm going to stand back there behind a great offensive line, great wide receivers, and I'm just going to throw touchdown passes. I want to see when you fail and you respond. That tells him a lot about, and he's scouting for AFC teams right now. But looking at this draft, I'm not sure about Anthony Richardson. Talent, but he wasn't talented enough to dominate in college.
Nope.
C.J. Stroud, it's hard to assess an Ohio State quarterback. These are the best wide receivers. They have a better wide receiving core than a few NFL teams.
Yes, they do.
Will Levis couldn't start at Penn State. Hendon Hooker's 25 coming off ACL. I mean, how many quarterbacks should be drafted in the first round? Not will be, but should be.
I only have 2 first-round grades on quarterbacks in this class.
Okay.
And that's Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud. I have a...
Are they close?
I think so, yes. I, for the longest time, saw him as the first overall pick to Carolina, just because of his size, because of his accuracy, all the things.
Is he falling?
He is, I think, in the eyes of a lot of the media. I had a call with somebody pretty close to the Carolina Panthers this last week, and the S2 test, threw a wrench into
now
the
explain
conversation.
That. Now this is for quarterbacks?
Yeah, so the Wonderlic was an all-encompassing test that was taken by everybody for the longest time at the Combine. Because of new data and new ways to do different things, this was more of a reactive test.
In real time.
And scores got leaked last week, and C.J. Stroud's score was not.
But explain to me how this, since we'll never be in that room, what's it look like when you go into the room to take this test?
It's almost like a whack-a-mole. It pops up, you hit it, right?
So it's all visual.
It's there. You're standing. There's the red light. There's boom. Your reaction is peripheral. Okay.
So this is red light, green light type
of things, and reactionary to things, stimuli. When something does this, how do you react to that? Safety drops down to the strong side. You wheel back and throw a backside 8 cut for the post. Things like that. San Diego had me do something very similar. It wasn't called the S2 at the time when I went down there for really a kind of a cognitive reactionary drill, and I killed it. Like, the peripheral for me was really good. Our Wonderlic test, Peyton and I were identical. So again, it's all these things. I don't know if I put a ton of stock in it. He sure looked good reactionary while he was at Ohio State, throwing touchdowns. And so I like him a lot. I think that he can be a good pro quarterback. I thought with him having Frank Reich, Josh McNow, and Jim Caldwell in place, I thought that was a really good fit for him. I think it will be for Bryce Young, too. I suspect both of them will be the first 2 quarterbacks.
But do teams, let's say the Colts, who would leak this? Because we know, strategy leading up to the draft, and there's stuff that comes out, like Will Levis, his side of things, the Colts side of things. Like, I don't discount anybody in a situation like this. Like, why did this get out? Why is it getting out now? And who's it benefit?
Well, I think there could have been some blowback from Carolina folks if they didn't take C.J. Stroud. I really do. And so this may be a way for them to,
they're validating their pick by saying this is why we didn't take C.J.?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do think that has something to do with it. And I also think there was some of that involved with what the Colts strategy was for me. I think a lot of people may have been upset if they didn't draft me first overall. Well, hey, here's all the stories we got for you. This is why we didn't do it. And there was never really a chance. I think Jim Irsay really, I think he really wanted me, and we probably understand why. We're both very impulsive individuals, and so that makes a little more sense 25 years later. And him and I've had a conversation about it. I asked him the question. I was hosting Rich Eisen show one time, and I had Jim on, and I asked him the question, how close was I to being a Colt? And he was, he said, I talked to a guy that I trusted immensely in the NFL, who had been in the NFL for a long time, and he flat out told me, you can't pass on this Leaf kid. And I said, well, good thing you didn't listen to him. So I think there's something to that. I think there's leverage. I think there's understanding about winning the PR battle. I do think now that I put my mock out a week ago, and I had C.J. Stroud as the number 1 overall pick, and then Houston making a couple moves to try to get the 2nd and 3rd pick. I think that changes now, of course. I do think Bryce Young goes number 1 overall.
Yeah, Anthony Richardson, once again, got a lot of ability. Will Levis looks like a guy who's going to play a quarterback in a movie. Hendon Hooker I like a lot, but he's 25 coming off ACL.
Yep.
I'm just trying to figure this out. That, Bryce Young, he's small. I just want to know if you can play.
I think that the two guys at the top have showed they can play. And I think Hendon Hooker has shown he can play. 4 interceptions in the last 2 years. Guy is accurate. Some people have questions because of what Josh Heupel's offense is like in terms of how it translates to the next level.
I had somebody who said that Heupel put him in a position to succeed.
Well, I would hope so.
I know, but
right?
but that was, once again, you got like Baker Mayfield when he's at Oklahoma. Hey, Lincoln Riley put him in a position to succeed.
What does that even mean? Wouldn't you do that as a head coach?
No, but then can he succeed on his own when he doesn't have Lincoln Riley or when you don't have Josh Heupel? When you go into the NFL, and let's say you have a head coach who's defensive-minded, not offensive-minded.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there's so many variables that go into a successful NFL quarterback. The right spot, the right coach, the right personnel, how do you deal with failure, all these things. And I do not think that the organizations actually take as much accountability as they should when they label a guy a bust. Let's say Anthony Richardson goes to the Colts, and they want to hold him. They want to keep him on the bench, let him learn, but Gardner Minshew struggles. The town starts clamoring for him to come in. He comes in, pulls a Malik Willis, doesn't look like he's prepared, ready to go. All of a sudden, that disappears, and now because of the rookie salary cap, Indianapolis is back in the market a year from now looking at Caleb Williams or Michael Penix Jr. or Drake May, and everybody's just like, Anthony Richardson the bust. Well, guess what? Anthony Richardson probably shouldn't be drafted in the first round. In fact, I have a 3rd-round grade on him. So if that's the case, you're doing him a disservice unless you have a plan ready for him. And I don't know if anybody else out there at all is advocating for something like this. Maybe it's because I went through what I went through, but I don't want to see anybody else fail. I don't want to see them be.
Well, he could go to Seattle and sit for 2 years.
You think?
Well,
You better have a plan in place. It better be executed rock solid when you draft him. If you're wishy-washy with it, then that's on you.
Yeah. Caleb Williams, if he came out this year,
would be the number 1 overall draft pick. And I do think Michael Penix Jr. would be the number 2 overall pick.
The Washington quarterback who transferred from India.
I really think he has a chance to be the best Pac-12 quarterback next year and be the Heisman Trophy winner if he has the season he had last year. Led the nation in passing. He's got his receivers back.
Wow.
This is going to be an unbelievable Pac-12 season in terms of quarterback play. I mean, you have Bo Nix. You have DJU at Oregon State under Jonathan Smith. You have Caleb Williams. You have Cam Rising when he comes back.
Yeah.
Michael Penix Jr. The Pac-12 is loaded. What we saw this year from the SEC in terms of quarterbacks for next year's draft, we're going to see it in the Pac-12 next year.
You know who I love, and he's not going to get love, the UCLA quarterback.
I got him as my number 4 guy. I got him 2nd-round grade.
I really like him.
But, since I've moved to Connecticut, you and I are kind of on the same page a
know,
lot.
that's scary. That's scary. We have certain tendencies, but not other tendencies.
I like the way you think there, too. Tons of starts, tons of experience, played in a pro-style
Chip
offense
Kelly.
with Chip Kelly.
I know.
I like. He's got velocity for a smaller guy. He can move. I mean, if you put him in an offense similar to what we saw Shane Steichen do a year ago with Jalen Hurts, they remind me a ton of each other. A lot of each other. So I don't think he'll go in the second round. I think you'll get a steal with him maybe in the third, early fourth, and he can end up in a place where ultimately
I'd love to see him in Baltimore.
So would I.
If you didn't have Lamar and you decided, I mean, maybe I'm overselling. I like what I saw, and I hope he gets an opportunity, and he's not waiting on that third day. Before I let you go, Bijan Robinson should be taken where will be taken.
With his talent, he should be a top 10 pick easily. But the running back position is so devalued.
Yeah, but if I make him Deebo Samuel, now he's different. I got to make, if I'm a running back, I want to be going in as the hybrid. I want to be that kind of running back.
He is, but they still aren't willing to. Now, I will say this. Being able to draft a player because of the rookie salary cap and get a fifth-year option and most likely add a franchise tag, you may have him for 7 years on a limited amount of money.
Yes.
And if that's the way you're thinking and you think it's a piece, by all means. I have him going to the Dallas Cowboys around 26.
Yeah. He might go to the Falcons.
Yep.
He might go up early.
Arthur Smith needs to do something. I don't know what he's got on Arthur Blank, but I've never seen a guy that's been so mediocre in his first 2 years. Just kind of just sliding by through everything. He better win this year. There's got to be a conversation around that.
He's Ryan Leaf. Always great to see you.
You too.
You make us smarter. His Sirius XM radio show, NFL, ESPNU, Pac-12 radio, and the podcast Bus, the Ryan Leaf Story, and working the draft, college football, NFL analyst. Ryan Leaf, thank you, buddy. Thanks
you.
for stopping by. We'll take a break. Phone calls coming up after this.